conversations on hot topics with people who don't share your same beliefs. Your host, Katrina Esau, Sabrina Protic, Ricky Burney, and Walter Parker. Now let's get ready to have that conversation. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship on Facebook.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Uncomfortable Conversation. We're going to help you start your day. So grab your favorite cup of coffee or your favorite brew of tea. Sit back and listen to Uncomfortable Conversation. My name is Sabrina Protic, and I am a life coach, financial coach, and author of the book, Growing Ageless, Think Young, and Live Younger. We'll be joined soon by our co-host, Ricky Burney. He is a success coach and author of the book, Destined for Greatness, 90 days of transformational affirmation. He is out of Tampa Bay, Florida. And Ricky, we have another person with us today. This is Joel Holtz. He is the creative marketing director for Thriving Women Network. He's the guy that puts the strips together and the photos and the music, and he makes us look good.
Oh, wow. So, okay. Welcome to the show.
Yes, he's going to be like kind of co-hosting with us a little bit today. We'll focus a lot of our attention and on our boots on the ground people that we'll introduce shortly. But just so our guests and our audience gets to know who we are, tell us a little bit about how your 2021's been, Ricky.
Well, 2021, as I stated last week, has been, for me, just an amazing experience because I put more of the focus on my self-care. So my theme for 2021 was peace. And peace for me meant that I needed to make my self-care a priority. So that meant taking more time to relax, rejuvenate, making sure that the things that I invested in were things that were serving me. And it was also serving the purpose that I had in life. And just in general, not taking everything to heart, understanding that there are some things that I can't change. And the things that I can change, those are the things that I'm going to invest my energy in. So it's just been an amazing 2021 so far.
Wonderful. That perspective of self-care. You did mention that last week. Let's go to Joel. Joel, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how your 2021's been shaping up.
Well, for most of my career, I was in IT. And then until recently, last year, I became creative director. So it's been more of a transition for me. And so I would say I'm into a bunch of things, and I'm at this intersection where using some of your hobbies and talents and being able to capitalize on them and now take that to the next level. And so I feel like 2021 is just a continuation of execution, of continuing to get better, growth, things of that nature. So my 2021 has been great, and I have great prospects for moving forward this year.
That's optimism. I love it. None of us really knew what 2021 was going to bring because we're coming out of 2020. And I have to say, for me, it's been a positive experience thus far. But I'm like Ricky, it starts in my own mind and my own head. And I've resolved myself that this is going to be a great year for me and my family. And my vision board for 2021 is reconnecting with family and friends. We've learned how to live differently now with the pandemic, finding ways to connect. And we're doing a family Zoom. I haven't seen my mother physically since COVID, but now for her, and we all need it. And it's really hard to reel my brother in because he just is not that guy, but he's joining in and we have a family Zoom. And, so we still connect with mama and my sister, my brother, husbands around. And so that, learning how to go around the mountain. And that's brought me a lot of joy. So we're starting this out with a positive mindset. Now we're talking about a topic today that some people could perceive as negative, but it's not a negative. And we're going to lean in. I'll just tell you a little bit about our show platform for those who are just tuning in for the first time. our mission for Uncomfortable Conversation is to equip and empower our listeners to take the proper steps and to prepare for those uncomfortable conversations. You have to get ready. You got to prepare yourself to have an uncomfortable conversation on topics and issues that matter most to people. They're the conversations that we often put off to the last minute. You know what I'm talking about. You know them. Oh, I hate to have this conversation. Oh, I got to, and it could be anybody. It could be a friend, employer, mother. I dread it. Sometimes we lose a night's sleep, maybe even more than a night's sleep, because we got to have that conversation. We anticipate the dread. We put a negative spin on it. But here's what happens when we shy away from that that uncomfortable conversation. Our aura changes. We may even feel a little awkward and a little uncomfortable, and the listener feels that and sense that it's not something that we want to have, and then it creates a certain aura in them. So we're going to unpack this today. I'm going to bring Ricky Burney on to help me unfold this topic today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So today we are speaking about gun violence. And the gun violence and gun crime has drastically risen, with over 19,000 people killed in shootings and firearm-related incidents in 2020 alone, which is horrible. That is the highest death toll in over 20 years, according to data from the Gun Violence Archive. This total includes victims of homicides and unintentional deaths, but does not include gun suicides. Much of this violence has most significantly impacted on communities, exacerbating disparities already apparent in historical patterns. Within inner city minority communities that deal with high levels of gun violence, it is not uncommon that deal with high levels of gun violence. It is not uncommon for there to be multiple shooting victims at one incident. According to Everytown for Gun Safety, Black Americans make up 68% of homicide victims in larger cities, many of them victims of gun violence. And as they stated, this is something that is uncommon. So this is going to be a very critical topic to unpack as far as gun violence, especially within our Black and brown communities. Sabrina, back to you.
Sure, Ricky. So let's kind of evaluate the platform and how we're going to deal with this uncomfortable conversation today, especially on gun violence. How should we handle these conversations? Well, we want to be proactive. We want to identify what it is, the subject matter that we're talking about, how we want to cover that topic, what are the real issues and our perceived issues of the topic. We want to invoke certain principles during this conversation. That is, our intention should be good. It's not to call somebody out and slam them. That's not an uncomfortable conversation. That's pushing your point of view on someone. What we want to do is we want to have good intentions. We want to be genuine in our interest. We want to show the other person that we care, that we value them, that their feelings are important to us, that we want to protect our relationship with that person, and that they matter. So one thing we don't want to do, and oftentimes this happens in so many conversations, and I'm guilty of it, and yet I hate it, is when we want to define somebody else's intentions. Have you ever had conversations like, I already know what you're going to say, or I know how you feel, or I can tell you how you feel? Well, when you say that, it's game on. Now that person has left the building in terms of having an uncomfortable conversation. It's more of a war zone. So we don't ever want to portray someone else's feelings and intentions. We don't have the right to do that. Neither do we know how they really feel. So with that being said, we want to bring this topic to light today, gun violence in America. And Ricky, can you head that off for us?
Yeah. So as I stated, the crimes more than any year has increased. And since then, the numbers that are showing in Chicago had 3,237 shooting incidents as of December 27, an increase of over 50% from 2020, from 2,120 incidents reported in the same time frame in 2019. New York City had 1,824 shooting victims this year as of December 20th, compared to 896 last year, a 39% increase in homicides year on year. The New York Times reporting that 2020 has been the city's deadliest in nearly a decade. But experts cite systemic issues long apparent in disenfranchised communities, a lack of opportunities, access to suitable education, food, and healthcare as causative factors, as well as widespread perceptions that police departments have stepped back from their responsibilities in response to this year's racial justice protests. 2020 has been a record-breaking year when it comes to Americans buying firearms. And there is fear amongst activists and experts that this violence will continue in 2021 unless evidence-based community-led initiatives that can quell the problems are enacted. Sustained financial investment within communities that face daily gun violence is seen by many as the necessary first step. So, Brandon, that is a lot. And just kind of let us know what from hearing those statistics, what is your overall takeaway from that? What do you kind of get from that? How do you take that in as to why this is happening right now, the increase in gun violence?
Well, Ricky, let's kind of explore some of these numbers a little bit more. You know, they say numbers don't lie. So that's what my math teacher told me. Numbers don't lie. So let's kind of explore these numbers a little bit more. So to kind of bring it even into further perspective, because are the numbers going up or the numbers going down? This is really going to surprise you. In Chicago, they had 3,237 shooting incidents as of December 27th. Like we're in a pandemic. And yet, look at the number of shootings. Also, this was an increase of over 50% from the 2,120 incidences reported this same time last year in 2019. That is shocking. We're trying to save and protect lives, and here the shootings are going up. But we're going to talk about why. New York City had 1,824 shooting victims this year as of December 20, coming out of pandemic, this number's crazy, compared to 896 the year before. That's a 39% increase in homicides. Year over year, New York Times reported 2020 has been the city's deadliest year. The deadliest in shootings in decades. Well, why? Experts cite systematic issues along with, the apparent disenfranchisement of communities, lack of opportunities, access to suitable education, food. We're in a pandemic. People have lost their jobs. Maybe there's no money. Maybe there's no food, and you got to do what you got to do. That could be. Look at the healthcare crusade. Look at what's going on with that, as well as the widespread perception. We know what happened in 2020 with the police and stepping back from their responsibilities in response to the racial divide and the racial issues that confronted all of us in 2020. There's fear amongst the activists, and these experts say that the violence will continue in 2021 unless the communities come together. We need initiatives. We need something to quell the problem. A sustained financial investment within the communities that face these daily gun violence issues is seen by some as just the first step to this increasing and alarming number of gun violence. Ricky, you want to weigh in on that a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. We obviously, the many conversations that we've had over the past several weeks is just basically showing us the reason why this is happening. People are in frustration, and when people are frustrated, the only thing that they can do is get into survival mode. So if their critical thinking skills tell that the only way to be able to provide for themselves is to act in ways of violence, they're going to go that way. If that's their foundation, that's what they're going to go to. So we just have a situation right now where people just they go to what is comfortable, they go to what is something they're familiar with, and the more we make it accessible, the easier it's going to be, and the increase in gun violence is going to continue. So we just, in my opinion, I think we need people to be able to express what they need in a more safe environment, and we also need just people who are in positions of power to really understand the needs of everyone, and to be able to communicate and be able to receive what's going on. So I do believe that we are going to take a quick sponsor break, and when we come back, we will unpack this more with our panel guests who will be here very shortly. Be back in a minute.
Chicago faces an epidemic of gun violence. This year alone, more than 2,100 people have been shot, more than 400 killed. The 4th of July weekend was especially violent. Around 100 people were shot in just over 4 days. Adriana Diaz gained unique access in some of Chicago's toughest neighborhoods that weekend for CBSN On Assignment. Adriana, good morning.
Good morning. Chicago police have already seized more than 5,000 guns from the streets of Chicago this year. Young men that we met on the south and west sides told us how easy it is to get illegal guns and why many never leave their homes without one.
I know people who can't walk from their house to the store without a gun on them.
Why is that a reality? Why do people feel like they have to have a gun on them?
Because people getting killed left and right. It's sad.
I got shot twice and I could have been gone, but I'm still here, so that's God. I know that's with me, so this hell on earth. It ain't.
It's hell on earth?
Yeah, it's hell on earth.
The problem we heard and saw over and over again was guns.
We make sure ourselves secure, we make sure ourselves safe.
CBS News gained access to several crews on Chicago's south side.
Yeah, man, this is Mac right here, man. That's 50 shots, man.
That's a MAC-10, a semi-automatic weapon originally designed for military use and illegal in Chicago.
So why do you need guns with that much firepower?
Protection. It's dangerous out here.
This Southside crew is affiliated with the group the Titanic Stones. They covered their faces to conceal their identities. They actually told us they hate guns.
We ain't with this gun. I'm just doing it for survival, bro, until I could put my family and myself in a better predicament to where I need to be. We just trying to keep ourselves protected.
Many guys told us they'd rather risk the police catching them with a gun than have their rival find them without one.
Where do you get a gun like this? Where did you get this gun?
We got
Off the streets, people sell them.
How easy is it for someone to get a gun?
that easy.
You want one?
No. Just like that.
That's how easy it is.
And it's worth it for you to keep this gun?
We felons, you know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gonna give us no job. The cops don't give a about us.
But with so many innocent people dying by these bullets,
that's good.
Is it worth it? I mean,
no. At the end, it ain't worth it. But you got dumb off. You got want to go pull a drill or drive-by. You know what I'm saying? And someone innocent little sister gets shot. Now guess what? Them and them guys are coming back, and that's how the confrontation is just gonna keep going.
Why not just put the guns down?
Put the guns down? Well, it probably will happen, maybe in the near future, just no time right now, you know? I don't want to put my gun down. 9 times out of 10, the innocent ones getting hurt, you know what I'm saying? If they do come shooting right now, we probably don't even get shot, and we got guns. You might get shot. That's how up it is, you know? But it's survive or be killed.
It is some incredibly powerful reporting, Adriana. One of the things that's really unique about CBSN On Assignment is the ability to show our audience the ways that you get access to some of the stories, some of the people that you spoke to. How did you start a conversation and embed with these Chicago gangs?
It wasn't easy. At first, when we met a lot of these guys, they were hesitant. They didn't trust us. They were like, what are you guys doing here? What are these cameras? Who are you? And we were with locals who could kind of ease their worries and tensions and really help us gain credibility with the people we were trying to talk to. But it took time. We were there for 7 days, from the afternoon till after midnight most days. And we kept going back to the same people to gain their trust, to develop a relationship. And our main person that we focus on, his name is Paris. He goes by Stash. trash. The first time we met him, he didn't want anything to do with us. He was like, who are these people? You know, you guys aren't really here. You guys really don't care about us. And, you know, he totally didn't want to speak to us the first time. We went back. He opened up a little bit more. We went back. We interviewed him 2 or 3 times. By the end, he was opening up about his fears and his dreams.
First time an interviewee offered you a gun.
First time, for sure.
It's like your reaction. I mean, it's nuts to see. But this is an important story.
It really was. And we're in an alley. I'm looking at his finger, making sure it's not too close to the trigger, to make sure there wasn't an accident.
Wow.
Incredible reporting, Adriana. Thank you. You can see Adriana's full report on the next CBSN On Assignment. Watch it Monday night at 10, 9 Central here on CBS and on our streaming network, CBSN.
Uncomfortable Conversations Talk Radio is sponsored by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship. You can follow all our hosts on Facebook. Search Trendsetter Mentor Group and join. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. Gun violence. What is the solution? So before the break, you just saw that video about gun violence in Chicago. And what we have are 2 esteemed guests who are going to help us unpack that. Both of these people have been on the side of gun violence, but on 2 different sides. We have one who was in the military, and then we have someone who unfortunately got caught up in the prison system. So we have 2 different perspectives, and I am looking forward to seeing how this conversation is going to flow. I'm going to introduce our first guest, and that person's name is Matthew Schwab, strategic mentor and founder of the Inner Voyager. He is a former captain in the U.S. Merchant Marine who has led crews of up to 300 for nearly 20 years. He had extensive experience in making important decisions in the name of change management for several companies, including the U.S. military. Matthew was inspired to create Inner Voyaging, which is a movement towards self-mastery and recreating the story of your life. This is achieved by holistically balancing the following aspects of the relationship we have with ourselves: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. These aspects are balanced and elevated together as one unit in harmony. Once this is achieved, there's a realization that not only are the physical, mental, and emotional, spiritual aspects of ourselves towards the same harmony, unified and balanced, but the relationship we have with the others can move towards the same harmony. So once we resolve what's going on within ourselves, we will see that start to pour out in the energy and the attractions that we have with other people. And I absolutely believe that this goes for our intimate relationships, our family and friendly relationships. This then extends out to expanding success within our businesses and the relationship we forge in partnerships therein. Nevertheless, we must start by mastering the relationship we have with ourselves, move beyond our fears. Welcome to the show, Matthew. I am looking forward to unpacking that conversation with you. And Sabrina, you have the honor of introducing our final esteemed guest, Malik. Can you do that for us, please?
Yes. Thank you. And it's nice hearing that background there on Matthew. He'll bring a lot to the table. We also have Malik Simpson. He's a youth mentor and CEO of Cons to Don. Malik, like many other Black and Latino males in his hood, would often play hooky when he should have been in school during his junior year in high school. Subsequently, because he wasn't in school, he found himself getting involved in crime. As a result, he lost out on attending high school, and Malik wound up serving 3 state bids in prison, totaling 28 years. In 2013, shortly before being released from prison, Malik's mother was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. This was a horrific cancer, and it spread to her brain. And his mother passed away just 2 weeks after his release from prison. And I have to tell you, when I had that one-on-one interview with Malik, as we were talking, he says, wait a minute. And he stopped my interview and went and grabbed his picture of his mom and showed us the picture of his mother. that was very impactful in his life. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but she was kind of the center around him turning his life around. Malik became more determined to leave a legacy for his mother. He is passionate about mentoring young people, youth, as well as older people, and is now positioning himself to do that as CEO of Constadon. We probably want to bring him on so everyone can meet Malik. His goal is to assist with personal growth and development of those who have been impacted by the penal system. He wants people all over, regardless of race, status, economic status, to become more self-sufficient. And I think he even talked that when he was in prison. Welcome, Malik.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well, and you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get right into our interview system. So we're going to have Ricky, you, and Matthew on the screen. Ricky's going to bring out some points. We'll bring also our creative marketing director on with us as well. And we're going to get into the meat of this uncomfortable conversation on gun violence. Go ahead, Ricky.
All right, perfect. All right. Welcome everyone to Uncomfortable Conversations. So as we stated, we just saw that video about gun violence, and you could just see the mindset of our youth right now, who just right now they may not feel as if anyone cares about them, and as a result they don't necessarily care about themselves and how they show up in this world. So both of you came from different paths, you know, but the commonality is that both of you have committed to be mentors in your own way. So I just want you all, I'll start with you, Malik. What is one seed that was planted before the age of 12 that made you want to become a mentor of other people? Was there a seed that really sticks out to you before the age of 12 that made you want to be that person that mentors another person?
Well, you know, as I spoke about yesterday, I'm a single child. I don't have any siblings. I don't have any brothers. I don't have any sisters. So, but I come from a large family, right, of cousins, aunts, and uncles, right? What sticks out for me, man, is love. You understand? The love that I got from my family. Even though my biological dad was never there, I met him when I was 9 years old. He never came back after 4 hours, you know, being spent with me and taking me here and there. But nevertheless, I had to reflect back on the love that was given to me within my family. You understand? And I had a decision to make. Either I wanted to be a part of love or I wanted to be on the side of hate. You understand? And I chose to be on the side of love. Because if you look at what's going on in the Black and brown community, it's a lot of hate, man. You understand? We talk this love stuff. There is more hate in the Black community than any other emotion. There's more hate than love. And if you look at the contrast within other communities, right? We fear each other more than any other culture. You understand? We on social media looking like we got all this love for each other, all this support. It is a facade. All right? And it is a facade, and it is a masquerade to mask what's really going on internally. If you look in the poor white communities, these kids are not carrying guns like they do in the Black and brown community, because they don't see an enemy when they see each other. When they come out of their apartments, their houses, their buildings, their homes, and they see their counterparts, they don't see a threat. They don't see a threat. But when in the Black and brown community, when we step outside our homes, we see another Black man, we see a threat. It's to the point now we see young Black females as threats as well. We gotta get back, we gotta find the love. Like I mentioned yesterday, we took the neighbor out of a hood. We don't even say, this is my neighborhood. We say, now we got to the point where this is my hood. And it sounds nasty. There's no more neighbor. We took the neighbor out of neighborhood. Just think about that. The neighbor is gone. All you got is a hood. What's in the hood? What is the hood without the neighbor? I mean, we in a way, we're self-defeaters as a community, right? Because we embrace these terminologies, we embrace these sayings, and we consider it, fashionable to talk like that. But these are self-defeating terms. You understand? And it is setting us back 40, 50 years. And it's scary.
Absolutely. And what I hear you say, and something that I also really believe, is that we have lost a sense of investment into uplifting our communities. We don't necessarily have the sense of pride that we had at one point, where we wanted to ensure that, we looked out for one another. We wanted to make sure that it looked the best that it could, that no one could just come in there doing anything. So I absolutely agree with that. And I also want to unpack something in a second, but I want to get Matt's response as well, as far as Jewel, that a seed that you had maybe before the age of 12 that made you want to be a mentor in some capacity.
That's a great question. I just want to say first, Malik, thank you for that response. That was impactful, powerful, moving, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, the willingness to accept what's really going on is profoundly healing. What moved me at the age of 12 to do what I do? I think I realized at a very young age that I had a high level of emotional intelligence, though I didn't know what it was. So my family was intact at the age of 12, separated after that. But there was a tough love from my father, and drive, determination, dedication. And then my mom was the pure 100% loving side, unconditional love, no matter what. So I think it really comes down to how we perceived through our lineage of how we were loved is how we're going to give love. So I definitely think there's a perception there, but I saw that I was often maybe misunderstood, and I became kind of fearful of that misunderstanding. Why am I like this? Why was I given this emotional, what I know as now is emotional level of emotional intelligence? But I also had a deep background in leadership since an early age. I was in the Boy Scouts, became an Eagle Scout. So I had this dichotomy of kind of a spiritual background, unconditional love of my mother, and then a grounded tenets of leadership, tough love from my father. So that gave me a great depth in which I can operate and mentor others. Doesn't matter if we're speaking in terms of the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, the physical, or the actions, words, and deeds that we use. I can speak to that, and I can learn. I've learned very quickly to adapt to what others are sharing, and learned through a lot of tough lessons that there was a willingness to listen to understand and not listen to reply. Not just wanting to wait for my place in the conversation. And that leadership, that depth of leadership, which through my experiences, I didn't see a lot in working within the Merchant Marine. I saw the leadership side, but the love side was lost. So I now use that depth to help people really understand, to grow beyond change, because change is a deeply fearful thing for most people, no matter if it's moving you towards what you want or what you don't want. It's change, and it's how we relate to change. I've had a lot of change in my life, and that change both personal and professional. I mean, even on a ship, when I was 20 years, I sat on a ship and I'm typing in an email moving across the Pacific Ocean. Well, you're still changing. You're moving. You're not sitting in an office typing. You're on a ship and you're moving. So I understand change, and I understand the fear that can surround that change. And that's, I think that's what we really need to help people understand, because we have this cognitive bias around change. And even in that video, we heard that these gentlemen feel that they're safe with a gun in their hand. Think about the mental block, the cognitive bias that these people have, that they equate safety with having a gun. That is the complete antithesis of safe.
Exactly.
And I think Malik,
I think that's you touched on a few things, and what I heard is the foundation of love that was in your family and in your structure as you grew up allowed you to be able to be in that place, because you saw leadership in your experience, but you didn't necessarily see that love. So maybe the people didn't receive love in the way that you did, and maybe that's also what's going on within our communities right now, is that people just never had that modeling of what love should look like. Joel, I want to get your response to that really quickly as well, as far as if there was a seed planted before the age of 12 that made you want to be in some capacity a mentor.
There we go. Honestly, man, when I look at this, it made me think of the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, because it was more about what Malik talked about, what Matthew talked about. It's an environment that you can thrive in. And so as I was just kind of getting into this and jotting some notes, my thing is like, it's a systematic breakdown of communities. And so when you take away those environments, you take away the opportunities for people to thrive, and a lot of this, unfortunately, it's frustrating because it's systematic. Some people are not fortunate. They keep pumping poison into these communities, and the people that can get out of them, it's like almost like a shame on you, or why don't you give back? And it's like, I don't want to be in the poisonous community, because like my man said, there's no more neighbor. So all you have left is these communities. And when you look at the history of all these things that's happened, a lot of these gangs, the reason that they're fighting and shooting, and why is it more perplexed? And they're like, Chicago's so bad. No, it's only bad over there, because I'm in Chicago. I don't even see that stuff that much. But what's happening is that a lot of those gangs, a lot of those structures that were formed in the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of those leaders were either locked up, killed, or whatever. Then you take away those communities. So it was more control. At my job, we deal with people with trauma. We deal with individuals that are in a cycle of that, whether it's either being raped, whether it's things of that nature, sexual, all that stuff, but it all coincides. So like Cabrini Green, for example, those places, half of them are gone, and a lot of those people are displaced. And what happens is those gangs or those groups or part of those environments, now you put them in these other areas and mash all these people together. So now you have these new factions, and they don't even think about, they don't have any respect for the previous gangs or the previous whatever. So now you have this younger generation that's just doing whatever they want. And then on top of that, because of the systematic breakdown, you can't discipline your kids. And now you got a whole generation of kids who have no fear, no parental fear of anything. So, it's sad to see that, the environment that you could foster in is, or grow and thrive in, is not there anymore. So they're all lost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Now, Malik, I want to go back to you for a second. You stated that you had the modeling of love in your family, and that's one of the reasons why you wanted to be a mentor. So, and that was a common theme amongst everyone, is that love and that feeling of neighbor and everything. So my question to you is, if you had the foundation of love in your family, what do you feel it was that kind of deterred your path and got you into the the way of going into being in the criminal justice system? Was there something that kind of influenced you, or what do you feel it was that got you onto that path before you ultimately changed it and became the man that you are today?
That's a great question, and I appreciate that. So, okay, we have love, right? And we have hate, right? You can't have one without the other, right? Okay, so when I was doing the right thing in my young years, the love was there, right? At 9, my biological dad showed up, took me out for 4 hours to a children's museum. He was a tailor. He made personal tailor-made clothing, suits, blouses, whatever for men and women in the modeling industry. Because at 17, my mom met my dad when he was a model and he was an upcoming tailor, made tailor-made clothes, right, in the 60s. So this guy shows up, right, taking me out for 4 hours, right? Now, prior to that, I felt a lot of love within my home, within my community, within my family, within myself. This guy shows up, taking me out for 4 hours. You bring me back home in my block. You kiss me in my left cheek, and you tell me you love me, and you never come back. The following day, no return phone call, no follow-up phone call, no follow-up visit. The following week, silence. So going into the school year that summer, I began to act out. I began to do the opposite. I began to exhibit notions the opposite of love. I began to hate myself. I began to hate my community. I began to hate Black men that looked like my father. I began to hate my mother. And most importantly, I began to hate myself. I felt worthless. And so that made it easy for me to shut down and go on a mission of self-destruction from the age of 9 to the age of 34. So when I had the love, I was doing the right thing. When that love turned into hate within myself, first and foremost, because nobody hated me. There was nobody in my family that directed any negative emotions toward me, in spite of what I was doing from 9, 10, and 11 years old, trying to get out the fact that I'm hurting, right? And I couldn't convey that because I didn't know why I was hurting. So nobody hated me. I began to hate myself. So internally, I became my worst enemy. Internally, I became something that I didn't even recognize. I became someone I didn't recognize through my behavior. And it was all because my dad popped up and took me out for 4 hours. And you told me you love me, man. You never came back. I didn't get that happened when I was 9. I didn't get closure until I was almost 50.
Wow. Wow. And you said something that's very, very important, that even when I do mentoring with young boys, because I do a lot of mentoring as well, something that we tend to avoid with our young Black boys is the emotional regulation, helping them to understand what they're going through, and not just telling them just to kind of, just kind of feel it. Like, as a man, you don't feel sad, you don't feel this, you just get over it, you do what you need to do, and you keep moving forward. But they don't realize that as a human being, regardless if you're a man, you still have to feel emotions. And until you can acknowledge those and understand what they are, you can't process them and be able to move past them. So what I heard yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to cut you off, but this is the reason why education is so powerful. And when I say education, I'm not just referring to, scholastic education or higher education or collegiate education. I'm talking about basic education. You understand? For example, when I think I was between, this is before my dad popped up. So I had to be a little bit, maybe 8 going on 9, right? And an adult male witnessed a stray dog, on my block. He was sneaking up on the kids that were playing, and he was going to attack the kids. So this guy picked up this rock a round egg-shaped rock, smooth rock. And he threw the rock at the dog, but it hit me in my right elbow. And I did a 360 and fell on the ground, and I'm hollering. My uncle comes up, and my stepdad, they picked me up, and I'm bawling, like uncontrollably, because I'm in severe pain. They said to me, stop crying. You ain't a little girl. What are you crying for? Stop crying. You a real with your little girl? Stop crying. And but I'm in excruciating pain, as opposed to letting me embrace the pain, right? Because I was hurting, right? They chose to minimize it, right? Stop crying, you ain't no girl. So I took that stance, that emotion, that statement into my young life. And it taught me to mask my pain. It taught me not even how to start a conversation about what I'm hurting. Had they not done that, maybe when my biological dad popped up from 4 hours talking about I love you garbage and never came back, maybe I would have been able to articulate why I was hurting. But no, because and I don't blame these two men. I don't blame my stepdad. I don't blame my mother's brother, my uncle, for telling me to stop crying and to suck it up. I don't blame them because they did what they knew how to do. You understand? They didn't know how to tell me or just, pat me on my back or just stand there and just watch me cry and get it out, because as a human being, you had to acknowledge the fact that I was hurting. You had to acknowledge that. So the best thing they could do was shut up, suck it up, stop crying, you ain't no girl.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what that even goes into, it sounds like, is the concept of forgiveness. Knowing that a person can only do what they had a capacity to do in their mind. Some people just were not raised that way. They may not have meant to hurt you, but that's the best way that they know how to raise you and approach you. So you said some great things, because let's think about it. Maybe if we teach young boys to pick up a pen and write down everything, maybe they won't pick up a gun and then try to express their emotions in a different way. So we're going to take a very quick sponsor break, and then we're going to get some more perspectives from the other panelists with Sabrina. We'll be right back.
What is the best way to stop gun violence? The city of Richmond, California in 2007 was ranked America's 9th most dangerous city with 47 killings per 100,000. Then Devon Bogan came, and what he did was radical for some, but it's simple for me. Devon started the Office of Neighborhood Safety. With his 6 neighborhood change agents, they brought the crime down more than 2/3 in 5 years to less than 15 per 100,000 people murdered by guns. The work of the Office of Neighborhood Safety is done far from an office. These neighborhood change agents, usually former gangbangers from Richmond, California themselves, develop personal relationships with the shooters, talking to the gang members, local businesses, liquor stores, churches, barbershops, homeowners, renters that live in these high-risk areas. They learn who the most high-risk people are that will perpetuate or be a victim of gun violence. And God willing, with their neighborhood ties, are able to quickly get these troubled citizens under their wing. In their own words, the ONS main focus is high-risk people, high-risk places, and high-risk times. For the fellows that join the program, they have to surrender their guns. The ONS gets them a job. They have to draw up life goals, and after 6 months in the program, if the fellow is working towards the goals and isn't exhibiting bad behavior, the ONS are able to offer that fellow, through their private donors, a stipend of $1,000 a month. This tough love, yet incentivized, father figure approach is working. Because Devon Bogan and his team know these violent offenders aren't evil people committing evil acts because of their evilness. No. We have the research. You ask any criminologist and they'll tell you the overwhelming majority of violent crime is committed because of poverty. They need a job. The fastest way to stop a bullet is a job. This program is not without its critics. Saying the ONS is hugs for thugs kind of program, where the ONS offers these boys a carrot, people usually want to give these boys the stick. But again, there's no argument here. The research is in. Harsh punishments and over-policing as a deterrent to crime does little to prevent crime. You see, if you want to change violent behavior, you'll have a greater success with incentives and structure rather than threats and fear of incarceration. One last thing. Devon Bogan and his team, these neighborhood change agents, are not informants for the police. They aren't setting these kids up. These are ex-cons, rehabilitated criminals taking on crime, and in a way, younger versions of themselves. And they're winning. The neighborhood change agents have done what these kids are doing. They've seen what these kids have seen, and have been where these kids are headed. And they're not interested in more incarcerations. I'll leave you with this. Removing the person who commits violent crime isn't the same as removing the threat of violence. Where the police and courts remove the criminal from the streets, they do nothing to address the culture the violent offender came from. The fastest way to stop a bullet is a job. Devon and his team attacked the culture and have reduced violent gun deaths by more than 66% in 5 years. All without removing a single person from the streets. And now those fellows in Devon's program have jobs, thus contributing to the local economy, thus systematically removing the environment for violent crime to occur, because there is less poverty in the neighborhood. More than 66% in 5 years. So Cleveland, call on your councilman, your councilwoman. Tell government you want Devon Bogan to come to Cleveland. We need this man to come speak. Let's get him on our turf. What do we have to lose but more innocent lives, of course.
Wow, that just gives you chills. Here's one organization, the ONS, Devon Bogan, what he's done to quell gun violence, and they go city to city. And I've seen 2020 reports and things like this where they go in and take these guns off the street. That's one solution. What I want to go to Malik and I want to go to Matthew and ask you, both of you have organizations or you have causes set up. Malik, you're the founder and CEO of Dons to Cons. What is your organization done? What is your mission? What has inspired you? We just saw Devon Bogan. Just real briefly, we've got about 5 minutes and we want to make sure we get Matthew in there.
Okay, just as for educational purposes, I am not the founder. My brother Oran is the founder of Cars to Dons. I'm his co-CEO, his co-pilot, his co-captain. This is the man who I've known since 1982. He's been my brother since 1982, and he had a vision. His vision was to create where we won't go around the country and speak about the effects of gun violence, prison, drugs, gangs, the purpose of education, the importance of education. Initially, that was our mission. That mission has not changed. However, it is now turned into a full-fledged magazine that should be out next month. With that being said, in order to combat, it starts with the individual, right? We have choices. I don't want to give people a crutch. You know what I mean? And a reason, for what we do. It starts with the individual. It starts with the individual. Each one of us is responsible for the things that we do and the things that we don't do. We have choices. I'm not going to blame poverty. I grew up in poverty, right? I'm not going to blame my community. I'm not going to blame my block, my dad for not being there, the system, and this group and that. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving nobody a crutch, and especially myself, right? Because it's just not that simple, right? It starts with the individuals. It starts with the individual.
I sure appreciate that. You're going to have a phenomenal program. We're so happy to be in on the inception of this. We will have you back because we have so much more to talk about with this gun violence and the reason why. As you see, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's go to Matthew. Matthew, and you guys are two completely polarized, and this is why this makes this such a great combination here. You're the founder and CEO of the Inner Voyager. So tell us about your organization and what inspired you and your mission, especially with respect to how this can kind of tie into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Sabrina. So the Inner Voyager teaches people to grow beyond change and understand exactly, well, take acceptance for the things that have happened in their lives, and then understand why we think, feel, believe the way we do, which are the internal circumstances of our lives, and how that correlates to the words, actions, and deeds that we have surrounding those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And then really teaching people to heal themselves, to not fear change, and to understand that there is another life. We're not just the product of our environment. It is a choice that we make, and we have to accept where we're at first and understand that we're projecting our fears, we're projecting our emotions, and there is a way that you can turn that back on yourself and literally feel what you've been projecting the whole time. And then you come to the realization, oh, wow, that's what I've been doing the whole time. There's a better way for this. Then once that's felt, you can channel that energy, channel all that emotion into a positive environment. For me, a big part of this has been nature. I worked at sea for 20 years, and that's where God put me that was my safe place that God put me in order to channel all that fear, all that hate, all that anger, because the forces of nature are much greater than myself. So I do want to just a quick rabbit hole. I think it's a big part of it is the environment. It's the energy that these people are stuck in. You take these people out of this environment. I would love to come back on and talk about actionable steps on what they can take and programs that can be set up in order to exponentially decrease the time that it takes for these people to heal, because that's really what they have to go through, a healing process. And there's a big part played in nature on that. You take these people out of the impoverished neighborhood, out of the concrete jungle, and you put them in the woods together. You're going to see a completely different human being, because now that fear that they're projecting outward is now turned back on them. And now we're forced to deal with our own fear, our own emotions, our own anger, because you have fear that covers up anger, that covers up the root cause of the emotion. There's a reason why these people are acting the way they are. Some of it's nature, some of it's nurture.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, Matthew. I think there's so much more to be said, and I actually think you and Malik, there's a connection there. I mean, he's coming out with a magazine. Maybe you might be featured in that. Your perspective. I mean, this is how we grow, and this is how we bring these things to light. I want to bring Joel Holt in for a final perspective on this topic. Joel, you've heard it all. I know you were taking notes. Can you kind of land this plane a little bit for us, Joel?
I'm just an ordinary guy trying to do extraordinary things over here. I just feel that, unfortunately, until that evil machine is disrupted, stopped, that this is systematic. Until that cycle, people want to get paid off of guns. People want to get paid off drugs. So if we keep demoralizing and degrading this a certain group of people, because it's no coincidence that it's in every urban area pretty much across the nation. So this stuff is getting flown in. This stuff is getting put into these environments. And then you have this concoction of people like Malik who come from a family, and he said his father wasn't there for him, right? So now he's lost. I had my own cousin, one of my relatives, cousin. He was shot. But that same kid with the same scar down his stomach, my cousin has that. Why? His father wasn't there in his life for him. He was lost in this little wilderness. It was a failed drug transaction or something, and his own, I guess, friend shot him. I know other relatives where it's like they're looking to be a part of something. I didn't have that because I had my father growing up. I used to get teased because they used to call us the Huxtables because of the same. We had a nice environment that we grew up in. And then, but one of my own relatives in the same environment says, I want to be a part of something because I wasn't feeling like I was part of this section. So, and then he realized this was something I shouldn't have done because it really doesn't lead you anywhere. But it's really about being a part of something, an environment, a culture. And we're all communal people. So like Malik said before, if you take the neighbor out and you have no environment, the schools are taking, especially in the inner cities, they're taking all the opportunities away. There is no wood shop. You're not learning about plumbing. You're not learning about electrical. You're not learning about anything. You have nothing. So all we have is these neighborhoods, and that same cycle's still there for guns and the gangs and things of that nature. I want to feel like I'm cool. I want to be part of this thing. So until that is gone, and you have something to substitute, like what Matthew's saying, an environment that you can thrive in, it's never going to change. It's not going to stop.
Wow, that's powerful.
Can I say something real quick?
Real quick, because what we need to do is find out how our audience, let's lead with this. Malik, how can our audience find you? Just tell us how they can find you. We're going to ask Matthew the same thing.
I'm on Facebook, Malik Simpson. You can go to concertdons.com for the website, and YouTube, concertdons.org.
Okay, perfect. Let's hear from Matthew. How can they find you, Matthew?
I'm primarily doing a lot of work on LinkedIn right now. Matthew Schwab, The Inner Voyager. Have a company page, The Inner Voyager. And then starting a podcast here tomorrow, actually, The Inner Voyager podcast experience. And then www.theinnervoyager.com.
Thank you. Malik, don't want to slow you down as long as it's a minute because we're out of time here. What do you want to say?
I just wanted to interject with the brother said something important about school, right? And last year I had the pleasure of working in the charter school, right? When I walked into school, I thought I was in a prison yard. Charter school, high school, junior high school, with uniforms on. I thought I was in a prison yard.
Hey, Malik, we'll talk about that on the next show because that's a whole different conversation. But you're right, things have changed. It's so different from the way I was in school. So let's put a wrap on today's show on gun violence. We will see you next week. We want to thank all of our guests, Malik, Matthew, Ricky, co-host Joel. Thank you so much. Join us again next week on Comfortable Conversation. As you can see, it gets pretty deep. I'm Sabrina Protic. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.